Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Content and Capture Capabilities. This is part 3 of a 4-part series in the IBM Cloud Pak for automation. Just a couple reminders, please submit any questions you may have throughout the webinar. Be on the lookout for the poll questions, and there will also be a brief survey at the end, and we would love to hear your feedback. Now I'll hand it over to Scott Burt to introduce today's speakers.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this webinar. I think you're going to find this interesting and valuable. We've got some excellent speakers with us today. From Integro, we have Chris Durst, who's been with Integro a number of years and has been in this content field for several years, working around this area of content capture and content management, working with his clients. So glad to have Chris Durst on the call here. And we're also flattered to have Bill Lobig join us. We've worked with Bill for many, many years. Bill's been at first FileNet and IBM, and including in the Watson organization, and now he's back to the content group. And Bill brings a wealth of experience, historically leading development teams at FileNet and IBM, and with his stint at Watson, he's now bringing a lot of that data science and machine learning capabilities and thinking as well to this content platform. And we're excited about where Bill and his cohorts are taking IBM's content and Datacap and products with Datacap and with the Cloud Pak. So we're going to hear more about that today, and I'm going to turn it over. Thanks, guys. Take it away.
Great. Thanks, Scott, for that warm introduction. I just wanted to start with a couple of thank yous. First, thank you to Bill Lobig for joining us. Bill, as Scott mentioned, truly is an expert in this field. You get webinars as, titled Ask an Expert. That's basically what we have here today with Bill joining us. He's got responsibilities around all of these products. He's in charge and got his boots on the ground as far as making the decisions and the strategic vision of where these products go and what gets invested in. So I'd encourage you to utilize Bill throughout this half hour. Type your questions in chat. If we can't get to all of them, we'll certainly reach out to you individually. But thank you to Bill. Also, thank you to all of our attendees. I know this is kind of an uncertain time with everything going on. But it's also a good opportunity to go ahead and do some future enablement and better yourself through knowledge. So just appreciate everyone joining, and hopefully you find it valuable. I think you will, based on the content we have today. So we can go ahead and move into the agenda at this point. Awesome. So for the agenda today, it's pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is we're really going to unpack what the Cloud Pak means. Start at a very holistic view of what products are included, and then go from there as far as Bill's gonna pull back the curtain and let us know what's coming next, what kind of product innovations are coming, and what has already been released in regards to these content and capture solutions. We can also run through some customer examples based on, again, on real world experience that Bill and IBM and the Integro team have. And then also going to dive into the roadmap. We're going to talk about what's coming in the future, what's being worked on in 2020 and beyond. There's a lot of investment going on by IBM in this space, and a lot of dollars are being sunk into these products, and I think our customers are really going to reap the rewards of that. And then if there's one takeaway I want to drive home on this webinar, it's really the flexibility that this offering is going to give customers, right? So it's flexibility in a couple of different ways. It's flexibility in deployment options, which we've touched on the previous webinars. I'm going to encourage you to go back and look at our previous webinars in this series if you haven't already. It's flexibility in the licensing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that after Bill's gone through some of the advancements in the products that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to dive into some examples of how the licensing can be leveraged to really better your situation and avoid some of the common pitfalls when it comes to licensing software products. So it's licensing flexibility, it's deployment flexibility, and then there's also flexibility in how you're spending your money. It's flexibility on capital expenditures versus just run rate, cost of living type expenditures. So those are the three kind of flexible options that we're going to talk about today. But yeah, again, if you leave this webinar with one thing, it's going to be the flexibility that the Cloud Pak for automation is giving to the customers. So we can go to the next slide here. So yeah, so here is Cloud Pak for automation in a nutshell on one slide. Today, we're really going to be focusing on those highlighted in white. Those are specific kind of content related to capture and content and records and collecting content. So those are what Bill's going to talk about here in a second. And that's really where we're going to have most of our focus today. We've covered previous products in the Cloud Pak for automation, again, in previous webinars. If you're interested in business automation for workflow, so those are things like case management, like business process automation, business process management, I encourage you to go back and again, check out that second webinar. Our business partner, Salient, did a great job of talking through those products at length. So feel free to view that recording on Salient or Integro's website. There's other products that are also included in the Cloud Pak, which we won't touch on today as much, and that's things like Operation Decision Manager, Workflows, Workstream, Business Automation Insights, BlueLooks Live, RPA. We're not going to touch on those necessarily today, but if you want more information on those products, feel free to reach out to us directly. Happy to talk to you about them. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Bill Lobick, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about what I just outlined.
All right, thanks, Chris, Scott, Lindsay, appreciate it. Okay, so first off, thanks for joining. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about this. As everyone mentioned, I lead the content business here, and we've got a ton of very interesting and exciting and value-adding, above all else, capabilities we've been delivering over the last 12 months or so. So I won't be able to get deep in all of those over the next 10 to 12 minutes, but I want to give you kind of a flyby and zoom in on some areas that I think of our particular interest to you in solving your business automation and content services challenges. If there are things that you are interested in or want to learn more about, please feel free to hit me on LinkedIn, L-O-B-I-G. You won't find very many of those out there, William Lobig, and I'll follow up with you and we can talk more. So what is our strategy? If I net our strategy down into three distinct areas, I would say that we are focused on and have frankly delivered in a past tense a cloud native architecture. We'll talk more detail about that. We're infusing AI throughout the fabric of our platform. I like to use the analogy, if you remember the old Windows laptops, Intel inside, right? I don't know what that means exactly, but my computer's better because there's an Intel processor in it. And AI, really, if you think about it at its most basic level, is a feature. It's making a suggestion about something, and it's a feature looking for an application, looking for a workload pattern, and there's no better set of technologies than our business automation to apply AI to provide suggestive and actionable insights that you can use to drive digital transformation in your business applications. I'll go into that. And lastly, we are heavily focused on making it as easy as possible to build content-rich applications using low-code and no-code tools that complement the very rich and sophisticated tool set that we have today. I find that talking to our clients, many of them don't know about the full power of what we can do in IBM FileNet content services, mostly because it's locked away in tools that they didn't know existed or are too technical to leverage. So great number of investments in making that easier. So let me start the flyby. So I mentioned cloud native. We have reinvented this platform and decomposed it into a set of granular services, not nano services, microservices, that can be all independently updated, patched, and deployed. You'll see a list of those there on the right. There are others. And this runs natively on Kubernetes. If you buy our Cloud Pak for automation, it comes pre-integrated with a free license of Red Hat OpenShift, and I'm sure you've heard by now, hopefully, that IBM acquired the Red Hat company, and Red Hat is the leader in Kubernetes technology. If you don't know what Kubernetes is, think of it as the more modern way to deploy and scale enterprise applications across on-premises and clouds, like VMware used to do back in the day on workstations. It's a very sophisticated set of capabilities that provides a tremendous amount of total cost of ownership benefits. We've got a ton of clients that are using this. We support it on any number of clouds. You'll see Amazon there. Actually, if you went and searched, or you click this link down here that I can send with the slides, you will see IBM FileNet Content Manager natively in the Amazon Marketplace, running native on Amazon services such as their Kubernetes service, their container service, S3 storage, elastic file block, etc. And this is just a small sampling of logos that we have in the content space that are embracing containers in Kubernetes. This is explosive. Every corner I turn, every client I talk to, clients are interested in how they can take advantage of these technologies, lower their cost of ownership. I'll give you a few quick stories. One of our clients, who actually isn't listed here, interestingly, I just ran out of space, there's so many, has estimated that they will save over $1 million a year in their IT costs in using FileNet on Red Hat OpenShift due to the more rapid time to value of patching, upgrades, there's ability to fall back and incrementally deploy, all these things that weren't available and possible before, as well as the autonomics around scale. Also, some clients on here who are named references, HSBC. HSBC is running FileNet natively on the Google Cloud platform. Now, obviously, we'd love for them to do it on IBM and use Red Hat, but we're indiscriminate on that in terms of how you can leverage the content capabilities that we're talking about here today. And they say that their time to upgrade and patch a FileNet system has gone from weeks to a month to days. Now, there's still regression testing and other things they do there, but even that is helped by the advancements we've made around how you can canary test, if you will, and deploy things more incrementally, more granularly, and roll back. And I keep emphasizing rollback because there used to be a big bang, one-way approach on technologies such as this, and that is no longer the case. Schwartz Group's another one. They've brought forward their investment. Allianz, these are all clients who are running, not just kicking the tires, running in production with FileNet in containers on Kubernetes in either IBM Cloud, OpenShift on-prem, Google Cloud, or Amazon. So lots of exciting stuff there.
And to expand on that, Bill, I mean, there's just so much value in avoiding those upgrades. When you talk about the six-figure upgrades to maintain these on-prem situations, or on-prem systems, by going to containers, which we again touched on our first webinar, the approaches there, and we're also going to be doing a deep dive in our coming webinar on the actual technical aspects of going to containers. But there's just so much value, and we're seeing it throughout our customer base. Like you said, it's a hot button issue right now, and there's a lot of groundswell of support towards moving towards containers, and it's comforting to know that FileNet has a strategy and customers in place who can already be referenced. It just shows how successful those implementations have been. So, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
No, absolutely. Thanks for emphasizing that. You're right. Okay, so back to the strategy. Cloud native, AI everywhere, making the thing more autonomic and smart and intelligent, low-code consumability. I talked about cloud native. Now we talk about AI. Many examples of this throughout the Cloud Pak for automation. This is one such example in the content space. We have multiple. So we've introduced this capability we call Content Analyzer. Content Analyzer is an evolution of our long history and success in capture and document processing. Frankly, we've positioned internally the way we describe this and in our marketing materials as well. We're no longer talking about capture. Capture is still important. Capture is there. Capture is a market. People buy against capture as a segment. But it's about intelligent document processing. It's about extracting intelligence from documents, converting unstructured to structured to drive business transformation. That can be in the form of driving business rules, automated decisioning, using machine learning to make inferences on probabilistic outcomes, routing workflows, feeding RPA bots, which is a tremendously explosive area for us actually, etc. So Content Analyzer allows, if there's one thing you take away from this, it allows you to extract intelligence from unstructured documents, convert that to structured metadata that can be used for a variety of things without the need for templating, fingerprinting, or sort of codifying the layout of the documents or forms into the system. Traditional capture technologies are highly performant and highly accurate as long as the variability of the document layout is low. As soon as the variability starts to increase, accuracy goes down. This product solves that problem. That's why it's particularly useful in use cases like accounts payable and invoicing, because there's no standards for invoices, yet every company in the world who buys something from a supplier has invoices. So there's a lot of really, really powerful technology here. It does not require FileNet. It does not require Datacap. It works very well with Datacap. In fact, it's part of the product. But this technology can also be used to enhance the extraction of other legacy capture technologies like a Captiva or a Kofax or something along those lines.
Yeah, and then Bill, am I correct in assuming that this is kind of taking things out of the back room, out of highly skilled technical laborers, and kind of putting the onus on the business users to kind of create these sorts of things? Is that kind of the idea here?
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. It's a great question, a great point. Yeah, the user experience for this and the training process to use machine learning is directly built for a business user. The system will tell you what it thinks the document is, what the fields are, and you can say, no, go learn, because I'm telling you you're wrong, and here's the right answer. Or you can give it a thumbs up type of thing. And it's a very intuitively laid out system. Definitely no development or programming involved.
Right. Okay, great.
All right, let's talk about capture. So mobile capture isn't new for IBM, but what is new is this evolution of it. So traditionally we've had mobile capture, but it was more of it wasn't as dynamic or flexible as our clients needed. Now what we've done is we've released a new capture app that, think of it as an SDK. It can be embedded into your customers, your mobile apps, your workflows. And it has machine learning on the device. So you can do intelligent extraction, teach the system that it got something incorrect or correct with a swipe of a finger on the device. This uses technologies like CoreML from Apple and some of these things. Very powerful, very exciting. But let's talk about value, not just technology. Bank of Montreal is using this for some very exciting things. They have effectively transformed the automated bill pay service that their clients use. They found that their clients, this is interesting, they did this study, I'll spend a minute on this, of human behavior. And despite all the technologies we have at our disposal, auto pay and all these things, most humans want to manually inspect the bill before they pay it because they don't want the service fees or incorrect charges to sneak in there. Well, that puts a human into the loop, but then people get busy, they forget, and then you don't pay the bill and you get a late fee. And you got to type the thing into the website and all this. So people want a checkpoint, but they also want it to be automated and low friction. So what they do is allow a client to just forward their bill to Bank of Montreal at whatever.com. And it can be in any form, email, PDF, doesn't matter. They use our technology to extract. They send a text message back to the customer that says, hey, it appears you want us to pay this bill to this person on this date, in this amount. These are the payment terms. We're going to take it out of this account, etc. Do you agree? You can reply in SMS, yes. And they handle all the rest for you. So the humans still got to check it, but they didn't have to do anything else, basically. So that is something that has really transformed their business and is also resulting in less traffic into the branches, therefore they're saving money on that, less IT systems on the back end, more happy customers because they aren't missing payments and getting late fees. So everybody wins. So again, recap, cloud native, AI inside, I showed you some examples of those. Now we're going to talk about low code and ease of consumability. So we released last year a set of UI controls that allow you to build applications easier in our Cloud Pak. So we've had Content Navigator for some time. This is different. This is not that. What we're doing in our broader strategy, which you may have heard about in prior webinars, is bringing together content capture, workflow, RPA, decision management, all in this platform, this Cloud Pak. And why are we doing that? Because we find that the majority of our clients have delivered applications over the years that leverage those things, but they had to stitch them together and you would buy a rules package, you'd buy a workflow, you'd have a content, you'd have a capture. We are integrating all of that in a common and consistent set of tooling for build and a common and consistent set of end user experience in running the apps. And content is a first class part of that. So that's something that's very, very a big focus of ours. As is this next slide, which talks about secure and external collaboration. We, for many years, enterprise file sync and share was a market. It was tracked by the analysts as such. I never believed file sharing was a business. I always felt that it was a feature of a content system. And I think that we're seeing that that is now the case in market trends. So collaborating on documents is something our customers have always done. They've done it in high-end mission-critical transactional applications like lending and underwriting and government processes, etc. but now they can do that more easily outside the firewall by collaborating with their constituents. And we allow them to do this, basically express the full power of the FileNet security model, object model, metadata model, governance, and lifecycle in this external share to make sure that you're sharing in a secure and collaborative way. This is supported in SaaS as well as on-prem and a number of other form factors like containers.
So Bill,
yep.
What would be the difference in I think you just mentioned it, but let's just dive a little deeper between what IBM's offering here and something like SharePoint and Microsoft, and I would guess the security and the scalability, as well as having that ECM, true ECM system is kind of the idea there, or the differentiator. Excuse me.
Yeah, I find, just speaking in broad strokes, the SharePoints of the world really strong at collaboration and business self-service. That's good. That's great. Not so strong at governance and retention and lifecycle and core and consistency, I'll say. And so, let's take SharePoint. Every client I've ever spoken to who has SharePoint, which is many, has a problem of SharePoint library proliferation. How many contracts, how many important business critical documents, how many pieces of business assets are out there in some random SharePoint site that someone created and no one even knows, and it's completely unmanaged, ungoverned, and therefore you are exposed. It's just a more modern version of people putting random things on NFS volumes and home directories. So what we do is allow you to integrate that collaboration, which, by the way, we integrate with SharePoint web parts and their portals, but leverage our governance technology, our policy management, our retention, to have that competence on the back end, if you will, that gives the best of both worlds for collaboration, ease of use, flexibility to business, but doing that in a compliant and confident manner.
Okay, great.
All right, I'm going to move a little quicker here. Enterprise Records. So speaking of governance and policy, Enterprise Records continues to be very important. If you haven't read the most recent Gartner Magic Quadrant, I encourage you to do so. That Magic Quadrant has a sister paper titled the Critical Capabilities Report, and they evaluate quantitatively content vendors on their function. 5 categories, one of which is Enterprise Records. IBM is number 1 in 3 of those categories out of 19 vendors, including the records category. So we got a really powerful product here. We've enhanced this to adhere to more current regulatory requirements. So for those of you and your clients who operate in Securities and Exchange Commission regulated environments, the rules have changed. You used to be able to do this in software or hardware, different nuances to that. We've updated the software to connect to the storage devices and provide that compliant retention with worm in a way that the IBM government requires now. So that was a flyby. Lots of other things here. This is the walk-off slide of the kind of 8 major areas. Obviously, there's tons of details. You see some things I didn't talk about, like storage options and GraphQL and different new APIs. Happy to go through this. If anyone wants to follow up offline, follow me on LinkedIn. And I'll leave you with our 2020 strategy. This slide may look the same. That's because our strategy is unwavering and continued. In 2020, we are continuing to double down on the things we started in 2019. Everything I showed you today is past tense. We've already done those things. If you own FileNet today, you go get that stuff. If you want to buy it, you get that stuff. In 2020, we're going to continue to build that out as we go forward. And that includes a number of additional enhancements around low-code and integrated tools and such. So with that, I'll pause and turn that back over to you, Chris, and I'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. So yeah, we just wanted to transition into here our first poll question. We're running tight on time. So just real quickly, are internal hardware costs a burden for your organization? We're seeing more and more clients that are leaning towards containerization just because those internal chargebacks are getting prohibitive. So I wanted to take a poll of this audience and see if we're kind of on a similar path before we move into the next slide. So go ahead and answer, and then we'll have Lindsay share the results here. Okay, look at that. So large burden. So what we're seeing in our customer base is reflective, it sounds like, in the folks we have attending. So obviously, moving towards containerization is going to benefit and correct that problem. You're no longer going to have those bare metal servers that you're paying for internally. You're going to be able to free up that money for other initiatives. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here coming up on the next slide. So you can move me forward, Bill. So here are the deployment options. And again, I keep hearkening back to our first and last webinar, but we're going to cover these in more detail. So I'm just going to fly through this really quick. But the orange basically represents traditional on-prem and containerization availability. So things like Content Manager and ODM have that dual availability. In gray, you can again today deploy those on cloud native containerization. Bill, you want to explain exactly kind of what that means for the layperson like myself? Oh, on mute maybe.
One of the main reasons we talk about traditional and containerized is we want to make it as easy as possible for our clients to make this transition. So you get all the new stuff in the same product set that you get the existing stuff, and that allows you to move at the rate and pace you desire. The FileNet stuff is literally you deploy the containers, you unmount and remount your storage and database, and it works. It's nothing more than that, frankly. Yep. So that's the strategy. Also, from a consumption perspective, we've moved to a pricing metric. Now we still have the traditional metrics, but we have one now that allows you to, pay for what you use and not for what you don't, and it's consumption and capacity based. So that's something that also is very powerful.
Yeah.
One more thing I mentioned
here in a second. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. You'll go. One thing I'll mention here is the Enterprise Records, Content Collector, and Business Automation Workflow. 3 of the blue ones there. Those will be in containerized versions here shortly, some of those within Q2. So there's more orange boxes to arrive.
Yeah, so this is a snapshot in time. It's not the finished product, right? So as we continue to invest and customers are onboarded into these solutions, this is going to expand and eventually be to a point where everything's containerized. So next slide. So poll question number 2, real quick, is shelfware an issue for your organization? And that'll lead us into kind of the licensing conversation, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up the call today. So shelfware, for maybe those aren't familiar, perhaps you purchased a software product, seemed like a good idea at the time. Maybe you got it as a part of an ELA, and it's just sitting on the shelf. It's not been deployed. Maybe it was you ran out of bandwidth, or you ran out of money, but that's the question here. So we'll show those results. So slight issue, which is common. Obviously, if it's a super large issue, that's more of an internal something that needs to be looked at as far as the culture of your organization. But Bill, if you want to go ahead and move us forward to the next slide here. So I wanted to touch on that consumption-based licensing that Bill alluded to. So here we have the same slide with the same set of products. So this is everything that's under the Cloud Pak for automation currently on the left, and things that are coming to the Cloud Pak for automation on the right there. So what Bill mentioned as far as the consumption-based licensing is essentially you're no longer buying individual software products. You're not buying Datacap, you're not buying Enterprise Records, you're buying capacity to run anything under the Cloud Pak umbrella. So no longer are you going to have to go for permission every time you want to start a new initiative, which we'll go into a customer example here in a second. But say you wanted to start a records campaign or you wanted to then use FileNet Content Manager. I mean, these are all just capacity questions. So you buy more capacity, maybe you reallocate capacity that you're no longer using somewhere else. So we can move into the next slide. So here's an example based on an actual customer story. So the head of privacy came to us and was like, essentially, we have a need to respond to some of these things that are coming out in the marketplace, like GDPR, like CCPA. We need a more robust records management tool. we don't own one today. We own FileNet, but we don't have Records Manager. So I think one more click there, Bill. So they go to the CIO for permission, and he's saying, hey, we have no more CapEx budget for this, right? So we can go to the next slide. So this particular customer started off with a large Datacap and FileNet implementation, right? So they had a huge backlog of records and digital and paper in Iron Mountain and paper in file cabinets that needed to be digitized. So they had a lot of capture licenses and a lot of capacity there. You know, obviously after that wave came down and they had backlogged all that information and it all got digitized, they weren't paying those high Iron Mountain costs anymore. Then they had all this extra capacity or extra almost shelfware at this point. So under this new, and one more click, Bill, under this new licensing scheme that IBM's come up with, you could easily transition that Datacap capacity that you paid for into a product like Enterprise Records just by shifting the licenses. So that's kind of the whole idea behind the capacity-based licenses. I think there is also talk of a user-based license as well for Cloud Pak for automation. But I mean, this is really where the value is that I spoke about in the beginning as far as those three pillars of value, and that's the flexible licensing, the flexible deployment, and the flexible spend, right? OpEx versus CapEx. So I just wanted to highlight that customer example and show how these pieces and parts can be moved around for no additional cost within your organization to help accomplish some of those initiatives. So I think that's everything we had for today. I think we went a little over, so thanks for sticking with us. If you have more questions about any of the things we covered, or maybe some of the things that you saw on the screen that we didn't cover today, feel free to reach out to myself or Bill. Our contact information is in this slide deck, and you can also find a recording of the webinar on Integro.com for those of your colleagues that missed it. And yeah, thank you again for joining us today. And Scott and Bill, do you have any closing comments?
I don't. I thank you for everyone's time. Like I said, I'm here at your disposal. Anything you need to get more from your investment or your existing projects, we can help you solution. Let us know.
Yep. And then Scott, I think you're on mute if you want to.
Yep. And Bill, thank you. Chris, thank you. We had a couple of questions came in, but I think they got answered and through the presentation. So thank you, everybody. We very much appreciate your attendance. And we've got another one next week, which is 1 hour long, and that's going to be a technical deep dive and a very interesting one for your technical audience. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, guys.